Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to be discussing SEO and Google rankings. Definitely one of the most talked about things with all my practices and all everyone who comes to GMR, what they're asking us about. So really excited to get started. So today I'll be your speaker. My name is Pauline Ith. I'm an account manager here at GMR Web Team, where we combine the latest technology with custom solutions to help practices acquire more patients and increase retention. And one of our strategies include increasing online visibility through SEO and other methods such as reputation management. So we've worked with practices all over the US to help them rank better on Google and just execute a bunch of digital strategies. So really excited to share everything with you today. So let's go over today's agenda. So first, we'll talk exactly about what are Google rankings, the difference between local pack and organic, and then we'll talk about exactly why Google rankings matter for your practice and how it exactly affects patient acquisition. And third, we'll talk about exactly what determines your Google rankings, definitely one of the most asked questions. And then finally, strategies you can implement to rank your practice higher on Google. And we'll wrap everything up with a Q&A session at the end. So please add your questions in the Q&A box, as the presentation goes on, and I'll make sure to answer them. Okay, so let's get started. So let's talk about exactly what Google rankings are, because definitely I think there can be some clarification that can be made here. So let's talk about it. So Google rankings refers to where your website shows up on the search engine results page. So you could be listed as number 1 or ranked number 2 and 3 and so forth. So the idea is the higher you rank up, the more clicks you get to your website, which results in more traffic and ideally more patient inquiries. So the ideal place you want to be in is ideally on the first page, and ideally in the number 1 spot, of course, if everything goes according to plan, right? Because that number 1 position is really coveted because it's the first result that people see and the one people tend to click on the most. So that's what Google rankings are. And I really want to dive into organic versus local pack, because I get a lot of questions about Google Maps and what it is versus rankings and all that good stuff. So let's talk about it. So local pack rankings are on the left here, and you can see this is just a group of 3 local business listings that appear in response to the search the user makes. So for example, here, best urgent care intestine. So this local pack typically appears above the organic rankings on the right. And it basically takes your Google profile and just ranks it accordingly. So if you click on more places, you can also see a bunch of other businesses that are listed. With Google Organic, this refers to just these on the right that you can see that come up when you search. These results can't be bought or influenced by advertisers, and they're the ones search engines deem the most relevant. The website links they deem the most relevant to the user's search. So again, they both appear together a lot in most searches and really provide some common information, but there are some slight differences into the rankings, as you can see. So let's talk about that. So besides the visual appearance and the placement, let's talk about, like I said, the other differences. So local pack is visually rich. You can see on that last slide, you can see a lot in terms of the ratings, the website link, the photos, phone numbers, appointments. And I like, ranking on local pack is great just to help your business stand out right away, especially if you have stellar reviews. It's really front and center. And that's one of the best things about local pack. And proximity is also a really high influence into what goes into your local pack ranking. So how close you are to a business heavily influences. So if you are, searching for a practice locally, they're not going to show you one, for example, in New York if you're here in California, unless you type in a specific search. So local pack wants to show you something very local, right? Hence the name. And your Google business profile actually contributes a lot to how you're ranking, because again, for Google local pack, that's what they're ranking the most. So how well you create your profile really affects your ranking factors. So with organic rankings, these are the results people typically think of. It usually drives the user to like the homepage of your site, or somewhere in the inner pages or a blog, for example. And these rankings are more influenced by, how well your website is optimized, so the on-page optimization or backlinks. And Google Business Profile only contributes a smaller percentage to the prominence and ranking factor. So you can see the big differences here and what influences that. And then the next question you might have is like, which is more important? Well, the answer is both. According to Bright Local Research, 93% of Google searches with local intent, will include a local pack ranking within the results. So this means local pack definitely matters for local business owners, and this includes, the practice located in your neighborhood, right? So, and then you can see here, a lot of marketers report that organic search ranking has the best ROI. And I definitely agree with this. So if you're constantly ranking number one for organic search, you're constantly every single day driving more traffic and attention to your practice. So it's best to have strategies for both, right? So that's really critical for us. So let's talk a little bit more about why Google rankings matter for practices. So I know you probably kind of have an idea of how it works, but I still want to dive into really how it directly affects you as a practice owner. I find that healthcare hasn't been jumping on the wagon fast enough with SEO and Google rankings, just because I know a lot of practitioners typically receive patients via word of mouth or referrals, or just being maybe the only doctor in town. But things are obviously rapidly changing with just increased population and then a stronger internet usage everywhere, right? So one of the benefits here is just increased online visibility. So more people are Googling, looking for a provider via search engine. So I actually had a conversation with one of my primary care clients just the other day, and he really said, a lot of people used to find him word of mouth, and he's been practicing for 20 years. So that was typically how people find him, right? So some of his older patients still find him that way, but now he's asking a lot of his new millennial age patients, and they say they actually find him via Google instead of asking their parents what doctor they're seeing. So people are really empowered by choice, right? So the more apparent you are in Google rankings, the more you're going to be visible to new patients, right? So it also increases your credibility too as a modern provider. More people are expecting, a digital experience and digital interactions as part of the patient experience. So I would definitely say that helps a lot. And then ultimately, it's just new inquiries. So you can see here, this is just, a search for just a customer data platform, but you can only imagine if you're ranking number one, you get about 39% of the clicks. Number two spot gets about 18%. So those are actual people clicking into your website, looking what's going on. So if someone is searching for urgent care near me or a podiatrist near me and you're ranking number one, that means people are going to be most likely checking your website and seeing if you're going to be the provider for them. So it's one of the biggest benefits here. And I also want to talk about why we specifically keep emphasizing Google rankings. And it's because it's the most popular and most used search engine. So, it's cited that 92% of overall organic search engine websites visits are done in Google. So that includes maybe Yahoo or Bing. So definitely Google is king there. And then, the total amount of health-related searches are only increasing as people are becoming more invested about their health. And then you can see here, first page, so important of a lot of that traffic, because a lot of times, people don't want to scroll pages and pages to find what they need. And typically Google has designed their algorithm to show you exactly what you need right on that first page, right? Because that's their goal. So keeping all this in mind, we'll talk about now how to, or exactly what determines Google ranking. So I briefly kind of touched upon it in like the first few slides of the presentation, but there's numerous factors that affect your rankings, and it really does change with every Google search engine update as Google determines exactly what searchers are looking for. Again, like I said, it relies on a lot of different signals. If you ask Google how to rank better, they'll tell you 5 things. So they'll look at the meaning of the user search, exactly what they're looking for. Are they looking for kind of more of like a Wikipedia page? Or are they looking for an actual business? They'll also find the most relevant content on the internet and place it in front of that user search, and they'll look at the quality too. So they don't want to serve a website that is spammy or doesn't really have the right info or relevant info. And they'll also look too at how easy it is to use your website. So It's called page experience. So is it mobile friendly? Is it really easy to click on links? Are people actually interacting with your website? And they'll also look at the context, surrounding your search, or the person who is searching, pardon me. So this means a person's location, past history, search settings, so that factors in. So while Google tells you this, free information, they don't exactly hand out, what is the breakdown, what is the secret sauce to their algorithm. So, we have to kind of rely on a lot of research that other companies do. Bright Local in particular has done a lot of research in terms of, what factors have been increased importance. So that's what we're going to look at today. Okay, so let's talk about on-page optimization. I feel like this is a very fancy marketing-centric term, but it is really important to how you rank on Google. And essentially, on-page is basically what happens on the page of your actual website. And you can see from the table here from Bright Local, what is going on your website is only increasing in importance for how you're ranking organically. So that includes kind of like what I said, what your website looks like. So we call it website architecture. So website must be, responsive, mobile friendly, has dedicated service pages because service pages tell Google what you provide, through your practice. Also, it factors in like high loading speed, URL structures, links, kind of more technical things, but essentially, like what I said, it's looking at on the page, of your actual website. Content optimization is another thing. So this is making sure your site has proper keywords. So if you're urgent care, you're not having random keywords for like OBGYN or neurosurgery if that's not what you provide. And making sure, your content has the proper keywords in the headings, virtual assets like images, making sure that's, coded properly. Because the coding of the website is actually very important because it tells Google what they're looking at, right? So, your page titles, what your website is titled, things like that. It just really does help Google determine the relevancy of your site and whether they should serve it to people actively, searching for a doctor near them, for example. And the idea behind this is just that a poorly constructed website shouldn't be ranking one that is built properly, right? Because again, serving the searcher what is most relevant to them is Google's priority, right? So keeping that in mind, let's talk about a little bit about some other organic search ranking factors. So backlinks and signals. Backlinks are essentially links from one site to another. So ideally, you'll want links from other websites that point back to your practice's website. So a good example of this is your Yelp page that has a link to your website. So that's a backlink in. And other individual factors count to like the quality of your links, the domain authority of the website that's linking back to you. Because back in the day, you could just purchase 1,000 backlinks and have you rank better. But now that's not something it's going to be dinged by Google. So you don't ever want to just buy backlinks just to buy backlinks because it's not going to help you at the end of the day. I always say quality matters a lot more than the quantity. So other things too, behavioral factors. So how people are interacting with your site. I kind of touched upon this briefly. But if no one is interacting with your site, Google is not going to deem it as relevant. So you want people to stay on your site, click, fill out forms, call. The longer someone is interacting with your site, it's telling Google, hey, this person has relevant content, right? And then citations. So citations are just another way of saying online listings. So you want to make sure you're listed on Google, Facebook, Yelp, etc. And then lastly, the personalization signals. Again, I kind of touched upon it. Google explained that this is part of it, which is the searcher's search history, search location, device you're using, and language. And then, of course, your Google business profile, which comprises about 6% for organic. And then we also have reviews too, so that factors in. So that's why I always harp on for a lot of my clients, making sure you get good reviews because Google will view you as a very relevant and highly recommended practice. So that's with organic rankings. Again, this is what's appearing below the local pack. And let's talk about local pack because it's slightly different, like I mentioned. So your Google business profile is one of the most important things for your local pack ranking, right? So you can see here 2021, 36% accounts for 36% of factors that influence your local pack rankings. So you can see here, this is just an example of what that Google business profile looks like. Reviews also factor in a lot too with local pack, because you remember your reviews are very forefront in your local pack ranking. So that's only a growing factor. Back in the day when I first started, 4 years ago, reviews weren't as big of a factor, but now it's, increasingly growing. And similar to organic rankings, some of those on-page links, behavioral citations also factor in, but it's just a smaller percentage than it would be for organic. So you can see here, it's not by doing only one thing, it's going to improve your rankings. You have to do a multitude of things and have a very comprehensive strategy. So really keep that in mind. So now let's talk exactly about strategies. So I think search engine optimization can be, a lot of work, but there are things you can do as your provider yourself to help you rank higher. I think maybe you can kind of guess what some of these things are. But again, I really try to emphasize some of these strategies that are more easy things for you to do, or something you can very much work with a web developer or an agency. And so you have a better idea of kind of what's going on in terms of SEO. So first thing you want to do is claim your Google business profile. So this is such a key piece, like we've mentioned, to being found on Google. Even if you don't have a website, you can still have a Google business profile. I think it's, again, one of the most important things you can do. So you want to make sure you claim it. If you haven't claimed your profile, it's really easy to do. Sometimes Google will create an automatic listing based on the business information in the area, or you can just create a listing if you're a very brand new business. So you can go to business.google.com and create an account that way. You'll just need a Gmail in order to do this, and they will just ask you to confirm your information, where your business is located, what's the name of the practice, and then they'll ask you to verify your ownership. So they'll typically ask you to verify the profile via postcard. So you have a physical location, they'll just send a postcard there, you get the code, you go back to business.google.com and enter the code in. So this is how you can successfully claim your profile. And second thing you want to do is optimize it. I think the word optimize makes it sound like it's very complicated, but it's actually more intuitive. Google makes it pretty easy for you to optimize, quote unquote, your profile. So what you want to do is just enter all the complete data for your profile. So this includes your address, hours, phone, any information about the practice. For example, are you an urgent care? Are you a physical therapist? You'll want to select the right keywords and categories for your Google business profile, right? Because you want people to have the right information, and you want Google to see that you're a very trustworthy practice. You'll also want to make sure you add photos of your business, so the exterior and interior, just so people know what your practice looks like, what's going on. Google likes to see this too, because you're making more updates and providing them more information so they can make, serve people more relevant, results. And then you also want to manage and respond to customer reviews and messages. So Google has a really great messaging feature. If someone has a question about your services, they can message you. So make sure you respond to that, or else Google will shut down your messages because they don't want to have people message and have there be no response. Responding to customer reviews is also something Google encourages. They really like seeing you respond to reviews, again, interacting with your Google business profile. And also it makes a really good impression for any prospective patients. They can see you're always looking at reviews, always interacting, addressing maybe a concern, or thanking people for their positive reviews. So it's really important that you do that. And also make sure you use any special attributes that they have. So whether it's virtual care or scheduled appointments, adding your COVID-19 info. Now, Google Business Profile likes to indicate whether you're woman-owned, minority-owned, or things like that. So take advantage of where you can, because the more information you provide, the more relevant you're going to be to people searching and for Google's algorithm. So that's with Google Business Profile. Second thing you want to do is create a really patient-friendly website. Again, not only does this help with SEO and your rankings, but it truly helps you connect to an increasingly tech-savvy patient base, right? So the mistake you want to avoid is designing a website that is purely for Google, though, because that's not what really Google wants. So you want to make sure you balance the information, the SEO strategy, with designing a website that is for the patient. I really recommend working with a website developer that has some kind of SEO experience because it's really easy to create a nice looking website that isn't Google search engine friendly or SEO friendly. But here's some tips. So you want to make sure you have complete information. So seems self-explanatory, but I think a lot of people don't even include like a phone number or like business hours or things like that. You want to make sure you have all the pertinent information that Google wants to see, but also what a prospective patient needs to know. And this includes things like your service pages. I think this goes missed a lot, but having each of your services laid out on its own page is a really great way for people to better understand what you provide, and also for Google to see, okay, this is what they do. So for example, if you're a dentist, do you do dentures or implants or root canals? So having a page dedicated to each, again, tells Google and the patient what your practice is all about. Second, you also want to use the right keywords. A lot of marketers will typically do a lot of keyword research to see what are the best keywords to use to drive traffic. If you're working with an agency right now, they should be able to provide information on the search volume for keywords and recommendations on what they think is best. Examples of keywords, again, are just like urgent care near me, OBGYN near me, like dental implants near me. So it's not like rocket science to pick out a keyword. You just want to make sure you're using ones with actual volume. So that's key there. And again, having those keywords on your website tells Google that you should be found for those keywords, right? And then next, you want to make sure you have a responsive design. Again, this goes back to the behavioral things that Google is looking for. So you want to make sure your website is smartphone friendly. Everyone is always on their smartphone researching, visiting a website. So you want to make sure your website should adjust to any device, whether that's your desktop, smartphone, or tablet. Again, having a very patient-friendly website definitely improves your organic rankings. So next thing you want to do is own your online reputation. Generating reviews is one of the best ways you can appear higher in local pack rankings, like we discussed previously. Again, 17 reviews factor into 17% of your local rankings. It shows a positive reputation signal to Google that you're highly recommended by others. So make sure you do that. So before you start getting reviews, though, you want to make sure you have online listing sites that actually drive reviews too. So such as WebMD, Google Health Grades, RateMDs, and Facebook. We find through our research that 76% of patients check Google reviews, followed by 37% of patients checking WebMD. So you want to make sure you have both. Some review sites are geared towards providers and some are geared towards locations, and some sites you can do both. I recommend still getting listed for all because I find that a lot of people will look at the provider and the location. And you also want to just create a review solicitation process to generate more reviews. We recommend having an automated system. At GMR, we provide one to our clients so we can look up with their EMR and then automatically send out review requests and surveys. So this ensures that you're getting all those patients immediately, you're getting that feedback quickly so it's fresh, and also just makes it a very seamless process for patients to leave reviews. You don't have to like fumble with the laptop showing them where or anything like that. And again, having a process is really good because we often find that happy patients forget to leave reviews, but those unhappy patients are really vocal and they're really ready to leave reviews. So by having a system, you get to survey everybody and really make it easy for everyone to post a review. Third, you just want to make sure you monitor your online reviews. Again, Google really likes it when you respond to reviews. So knowing exactly what's going on in terms of your quantity, your star rating, how recent your reviews are is really critical to know where maybe you should be focusing on, whether it's Health Grades or WebMD or maybe even Google. And again, like I said, responding to reviews is really important. Again, it can really impact how the prospective patient is looking at you. You want to make sure all your review responses are HIPAA compliant, not combative, because they want to really see you as professionals. So that's why it's really important to make sure you respond to reviews properly. So that's with your online reputation. Again, generating reviews on a consistent basis is really key here. And then next, you want to make sure you get listed on relevant sites. So you want to make sure you claim all profiles, kind of like what I mentioned previously, the practice and provider, major review sites, name and address and phone numbers on all listings need to be consistent, because if they're inaccurate, Google's going to deem you as not as trustworthy. And it seems very obvious that it should be consistent, but I find that a lot of practices might have slightly differing addresses or slightly, differing names. So you just want to make sure everything is consistent. I do have a link here for the top 25 doctor review sites that you can, get listed for to help improve your online presence. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that, and then you can let me add it to the chat here, but you can just look and then get listed on some of these review sites. So I recommend that. So let me add it here. There we go. So you guys have that. Check it out. The more sites you get listed on, the more citations you have, and the more Google will want to rank you versus some other people that don't have any listings. So that's key here. And then lastly, you want to implement Google Search Console. So this is, I would say, maybe out of all the strategies I presented, maybe a little bit more quote unquote advanced. But if you're working with a web developer, SEO strategist, or an agency, they should already have this installed. And the reason why I just mentioned Google Search Console is because you can easily work with your web developer to get it installed, but it really helps you troubleshoot issues that are affecting your search presence on Google. So it can give you insight into how Google sees your site, how many clicks you're getting, things of that nature. And it can also help you fix any site areas, manage the coding on your site, request Google to re-index or take another look at some sites that need to be taken another look at, and then also kind of seeing how your links are structured. Again, this is free, so that's a great thing. Google gives you all these tools. This is absolutely free. You just have to make sure you work with someone to install it on your site, and then they can work on any updates. So with our clients, we always have this installed, so we're always taking a look every single day if we need to update the site, add things, because again, Google's always updating their algorithm at least once a quarter. So you always want to make sure you stay on top of any new updates or issues, because sometimes a link can just be broken on your site and you don't even realize it until it's months later. So that's why I love Google Search Console. Okay, so just some key takeaways from today's presentation. I know we covered a lot, but I just want to do a quick recap. So of course, we first talked about how Google rankings are essential for you to acquire, the modern patient. Number of health searches are only increasing on Google, so you want to make sure that's where you want to be, right? And then you also talked about multiple factors that affect your online rankings. Again, it's a multitude of factors, not one single thing. So you want to really have a comprehensive strategy that includes a really great website, backlinks, generating reviews. Remember, when you just focus on being relevant and catering to the patient, usually naturally the results, will follow. And lastly, we went over those specific strategies, right? So that Google Business Profile, claiming and optimizing that is really critical. We talked about, building a website, not only for search engine, but for the patient experience. Talked about how to generate more reviews and kind of what steps you need to take to manage your reputation. And then we also talked about online listings in Google Search Console. So definitely really comprehensive. So if you missed anything in this presentation, we'll send a recording after, so you can have all this information on hand if you're managing SEO yourself. But now I want to move on to the Q&A and see if we have any questions. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I have a good one here. Should you create multiple Google listings, one for the practice name and other for the doctors? Yes. So like I kind of touched upon it briefly, a lot of people will look at the doctor themselves and also the practice. So definitely create a listing for both. So we do that for our clients. So the location itself gets a listing and then the doctors get a listing. And then you can also push reviews to both, right? So that you can help yourself as a doctor rank better and showcase all your great reviews, and same thing with the location. And it's pretty easy to get listed. You just have to follow those those steps, but I definitely recommend doing both. And if you're just a solo practitioner without a website, again, that Google business is so critical. So make sure you have that. So hope that answers your question there. So let's see, any other questions? Just gonna give some time for people to type. So I have another one here. So what do you think is the best, builder for a website platform? Can you use Wix or can you use WordPress? Yeah, so I would say the most common platform people build websites on is perhaps WordPress. And I think WordPress is a great place to start. I think the more important thing is just to make sure you work with a website developer that knows SEO, because they can make sure all the coding and everything is up to date. I would say the best thing you can do if you're working with another vendor is to maybe do WordPress. That's the most common one. If you work here at GMR with us at GMR, we do a custom built one because we find that sometimes WordPress has some security issues with their plugins. So we build our own platform. It's really easy for people to edit their content, but we manage it for our clients, and we just make sure we have everything installed properly to update and make sure we meet Google's algorithm requirements. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions we have for today. If you ever need help growing your practice, have more questions about SEO, local or organic rankings, please reach out to us. We can schedule a free consultation, kind of talk about what you're doing right now in terms of marketing, where there's room for improvement. You can reach us at 714-731-9000 or just shoot us an email or visit our website. Really love to answer any questions and have an in-depth analysis of what's going on. But again, I really want to thank everyone for joining us on this presentation today. Really thank you for your time. Again, if you miss any part, we'll send the recording after. And yeah, again, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.